Wine and textbooks don't mix. Jake's first major red flag came when Emma started claiming that Marcus sometimes offered wine to help her relax while studying. Picture this scenario. You're dating someone who suddenly needs alcohol to absorb certification material. Not just a casual glass during dinner, but regular wine consumption as part of their academic routine. Emma explained that the wine helped lower her mental barriers and allowed her to think more creatively about the complex problem-solving scenarios they practiced during study sessions. The frequency of these boozy academic marathons escalated from once per week to twice per week, then settled into a steady pattern of every Tuesday and Thursday evening, plus rotating weekend sessions. Emma would leave their apartment at 7 in the evening and return between 2 and 4 in the morning, explaining that they lost track of time when they really got into the material. She described these marathon sessions as incredibly productive, covering multiple chapters while working through practice scenarios that required hours of detailed analysis. Jake found himself trying to reconcile the image of serious professional development with Emma stumbling through their front door at 3 in the morning, smelling like she had been sampling wines at a tasting event. The contradiction seemed obvious when he thought about it logically. Every professional exam he had ever taken required clear thinking, focused attention, and systematic memorization of factual information. None of those cognitive processes typically improved with alcohol consumption, especially not the amounts Emma seemed to be consuming. Emma had never been much of a drinker during their 2 years together. She would occasionally have a beer at barbecues or a cocktail when they went out for dinner, but she usually stopped after one drink and often complained that alcohol made her sleepy. Jake knew her tolerance was fairly low because she would get giggly and talkative after just half a glass of wine with dinner. Yet somehow, she was now capable of drinking enough wine during study sessions to come home smelling like she had been marinating in it for hours. The mental gymnastics required to believe that certification prep demanded sharing a bottle of wine per session became exhausting for Jake to maintain. He started calculating the alcohol consumption in his head. If Emma was having study sessions 3 times per week and drinking wine at each session, and if she was coming home smelling strongly of alcohol each time, that suggested she was consuming significantly more wine per week than most casual drinkers consumed per month. For someone preparing for a professional certification that could determine her career advancement, this seemed like an unusual study strategy. The pattern of later nights and stronger alcohol smells became impossible to ignore after the first month. Emma would return home not just smelling like wine, but smelling like she had been drinking throughout the evening. Sometimes Jake detected what seemed like different types of alcohol mixed together. When he asked about this, Emma explained that Marcus had an extensive collection that would switch between different drinks depending on which topics they were covering. I started questioning if I'd accidentally started dating a sommelier in training rather than a junior analyst. Jake found himself in the strange position of supporting his girlfriend's career goals while simultaneously watching her develop what appeared to be a drinking problem. Every time he expressed concern about the amount of alcohol involved in these study sessions, Emma would remind him that he had promised to support her professional development. She made him feel like questioning the wine consumption meant he was questioning her commitment to advancing her career. Emma's post-study session condition became increasingly difficult to explain through academic activities alone. She would return home with wine-stained lips, disheveled hair, and clothes that smelled like multiple different alcoholic beverages. Her explanations for these physical signs became more creative over time. The wine stains were from animated discussions where they gestured with their glasses. The disheveled hair resulted from running her hands through it when frustrated with difficult concepts. Jake started paying closer attention to exactly how much studying could apparently make someone smell like they had been working behind a bar all evening. Emma would return home carrying the scent of wine so strongly that it seemed to fill their entire apartment within minutes of her arrival. Her clothes, her hair, her breath, even her skin seemed saturated with alcohol, to a degree that suggested either extremely messy drinking or extremely close contact with someone else who had been drinking just as heavily. Emma's breath, when she returned from study sessions, told a story that didn't match her academic narrative. The smell wasn't just wine or beer. It was the complex bouquet of someone who had been drinking over several hours in close proximity to another person who had been doing exactly the same thing. Jake recognized this particular combination of synths from college parties where couples would spend entire evenings drinking together in private rooms while everyone else assumed they were just having deep conversations. The wine and textbook combination had apparently taught Emma and Marcus far more than any certification program could offer, though the specific subjects they were mastering had very little to do with client management strategies or advanced analytics frameworks. Even some of Marcus's own team members were starting to find this routine bizarre, though Jake wouldn't discover that detail until much later. What he did notice was how Emma had begun undergoing the most remarkable transformation he had ever witnessed in their relationship: the mysterious case of the Unreachable Scholar. This transformation included a complete communication shutdown that left Jake feeling like he was dating a ghost. Emma powered off her phone from 7 p.m. to 2 a.m. during every study session, leaving Jake unreachable for hours at a time. She went from being the type of person who would text him photos of her lunch and respond to his messages within minutes, to becoming completely unavailable for 4 to 6 hour stretches multiple times per week. During their first 2 years together, Emma had been incredibly responsive to texts and calls. She would answer Jake's messages even during busy workdays, often sending quick replies between meetings or during bathroom breaks. She had always been the type to share random thoughts throughout the day, sending him memes she found funny or complaining about annoying coworkers via text. This constant communication had become such a normal part of their relationship that Jake often felt like he was carrying on continuous conversations with Emma, even when they were apart. The academic hermit transformation began gradually, but became absolute within the first month of study sessions. Emma would warn Jake before leaving for each session that she was turning off her phone to eliminate distractions. She explained that Marcus had convinced her that modern students fail certification exams because they cannot focus without constant digital interruptions. According to Emma, they had agreed to create a completely phone-free learning environment where both participants would power down their devices for the duration of each session. Emergency contact protocols became a major source of confusion and frustration for Jake. What would happen if his car broke down and he needed Emma to pick him up? What if there was a family emergency requiring immediate communication? I nearly missed a plumbing leak because she wouldn't pick up my 40 texts about water dripping through her ceiling. Emma's response to these practical concerns was that true emergencies were rare and that Jake could handle most situations independently for a few hours. She reminded him that people had managed emergencies long before cell phones existed. Emma's explanation for turning off phones during study sessions centered around research she claimed to have read about digital distractions and learning retention. She told Jake that studies showed even having phones visible during academic work reduced cognitive performance by significant percentages. According to Emma, she and Marcus had committed to creating the optimal learning environment by eliminating all potential technological interruptions. This meant not just silencing phones, but actually powering them down completely to avoid the temptation of checking messages during breaks. The escalating pattern of communication blackouts followed Emma's study schedule exactly every Tuesday and Thursday evening from 7 until sometime between 2 and 4 in the morning. Jake would lose all contact with his girlfriend. Weekend study sessions created similar communication dead zones, though these sometimes lasted even longer since Emma claimed weekend sessions could be more intensive without work obligations the following day. Jake found himself planning his own activities around these predictable periods when Emma would be completely unreachable. The irony of Emma's selective availability became impossible to ignore after several weeks of this pattern. She remained fully accessible during all other activities. She answered texts during work hours, responded to calls during social outings with friends, and even replied to messages during movies or while exercising at the gym. Only academic pursuits with Marcus required complete disconnection from the outside world. Jake started questioning whether Emma's job, hobbies, and other relationships were simply less important than her certification studies, or whether something about these particular sessions demanded absolute privacy. The dedication Emma showed to maintaining communication blackouts seemed excessive even for the most challenging academic material. In Jake's experience working in consulting, no certification prep requires total isolation from the outside world for hours at a time. He had friends who had studied for various professional certifications without requiring complete isolation from their partners for multiple evenings per week. He began researching the specific certification Emma claimed to be pursuing and found no indication that successful candidates typically needed such extreme study conditions. Emma's phone would apparently spring back to life the moment she left Marcus's apartment each evening. Jake noticed that Emma would often text him from her car to let him know she was driving home, indicating that her communication blackout ended precisely when her study session concluded. This suggested Emma was actively monitoring the time and deliberately maintaining the communication barrier only during specific hours. The immediate return to normal responsiveness felt calculated rather than natural. Modern relationship expectations had trained Jake to assume he could reach Emma whenever necessary, making these communication blackouts feel particularly jarring. They lived together and shared daily responsibilities that sometimes required coordination through text messages. Emma's sudden unavailability for regular household communication created practical problems beyond Jake's emotional concerns. He found himself unable to confirm dinner plans, coordinate weekend activities, or even share basic information about their shared living situation during study session hours. Jake began testing the boundaries of Emma's academic isolation by sending messages at different times during her study sessions. He would text early in the evening when sessions were just beginning, hoping to catch Emma before she entered full focus mode. He tried calling during what he assumed might be break periods around 9 or 10 in the evening. He sent messages near midnight, wondering if sessions might be winding down. Every attempt met with complete silence until Emma finally returned home hours later. The true reason behind these communication blackouts started becoming clearer to Jake as he thought about what other activities might require complete privacy from outside contact. What if the phone shutdowns weren't really about protecting academic focus at all? What if they were protecting something that would be much more difficult to explain if interrupted by mistimed calls or messages at particularly inconvenient moments? Jake was about to test this theory in the most innocent way possible. The dinner offer that broke the spell. Jake thought he was being the perfect supportive boyfriend when he came up with what seemed like the most thoughtful gesture imaginable. After watching Emma leave for another marathon study session on a Thursday evening, he realized these hardworking students probably hadn't eaten dinner yet. Here were two dedicated professionals spending their entire evening cramming certification material, likely forgetting to take care of basic human needs like food. Jake decided to surprise them with takeout from their favorite Thai restaurant, figuring nothing said relationship support quite like making sure your girlfriend didn't starve while pursuing career advancement. The plan seemed foolproof in Jake's mind. He would show up around 9:30 with pad thai, spring rolls, and some of those coconut rice desserts Emma loved. He imagined walking into a scene of scattered textbooks, highlighters, and maybe a whiteboard covered with complex diagrams. Emma and Marcus would look up from their study materials, grateful for the interruption and impressed by Jake's thoughtfulness. They might even invite him to stay for a few minutes while they took a well-deserved food break from their intensive academic work. Jake called Emma around 9:15 to let her know he was planning to stop by with dinner. The phone went straight to voicemail, which he expected given her communication blackout policy during study sessions. He left a cheerful message explaining his dinner delivery plan and drove to the Thai restaurant to pick up enough food for 3 people. The whole drive to Marcus's apartment, Jake felt pleased with himself for finding such a perfect way to show support for Emma's educational goals without being intrusive or demanding her attention. Emma's reaction when Jake called her back 10 minutes later was unlike anything he had experienced in their relationship. Her voice sounded panicked and strangely breathless when she answered, almost like she had been running or engaged in some kind of physical activity. When Jake explained that he was already at the restaurant ordering food for delivery, Emma's response was immediate and intense. She told him absolutely not to come to the apartment under any circumstances. Her tone was so sharp and defensive that Jake initially thought something terrible had happened. Emma claimed that bringing dinner would be distracting and completely derail their progress on a critical section of certification material. According to Emma, she and Marcus had reached a breakthrough moment in understanding complex analytical frameworks, and any interruption would cause them to lose their momentum entirely. She insisted that successful studying required maintaining unbroken concentration for hours at a time, and that even a brief interruption for food would destroy their ability to retain the information they had been working so hard to master. Jake found himself standing in a Thai restaurant parking lot, holding bags of food while his girlfriend explained why bringing dinner to hungry students would somehow sabotage their academic success. Emma was essentially arguing that eating food was incompatible with learning, despite the fact that the human brain requires regular nutrition to function optimally. She claimed that taking a 15-minute break to eat would be more disruptive to their study session than spending the entire evening hungry and distracted by empty stomachs. Emma's defensive reaction escalated when Jake suggested he could simply leave the food at the door without disturbing their study session. She insisted that even knowing food was available outside would create too much temptation for distraction. She claimed that she and Marcus had trained themselves to ignore hunger during intensive study periods, and that acknowledging the presence of food would break their concentration. This explanation required Jake to believe that his girlfriend had developed some kind of advanced meditation technique that allowed her to transcend basic biological needs in service of academic achievement. The conversation revealed the first major structural weakness in Emma's academic cover story. Her overreaction to a simple dinner offer exposed the fact that their study sessions could not withstand any form of outside contact or interruption. Legitimate study groups typically welcome supportive gestures from partners and friends. The fact that Emma treated Jake's thoughtful offer like a threat suggested that something about these sessions required absolute privacy and secrecy. "Sorry for trying to feed you. My bad. I forgot hunger destroys focus," Jake said after Emma finished her frantic explanation. The sarcasm felt justified given how ridiculous the entire conversation had become. He was being made to feel guilty for offering basic human sustenance to people who were supposedly engaged in intensive intellectual work. The phone call ended with Emma practically begging Jake not to come to the apartment, promising that she would explain everything when she got home later that night. She asked him to trust her commitment to her career goals and to understand that some forms of support were more helpful than others. Jake agreed to take the Thai food home and eat it alone, but the entire interaction left him feeling confused and suspicious about what was really happening during these study sessions. The dinner offer incident marked the beginning of Jake's serious doubts about Emma's academic narrative. Her extreme reaction to such a normal, supportive gesture revealed that these study sessions required the kind of privacy typically associated with activities that had nothing to do with professional development. The fact that bringing food to hungry students could somehow threaten their educational progress suggested that Emma and Marcus were engaged in learning experiences that would be difficult to explain to concerned boyfriends bearing takeout containers. Jake realized that evening that he had stumbled onto a fundamental flaw in Emma's elaborate academic charade. Real students welcome food. Real study groups appreciate supportive partners. Real certification preparation doesn't require complete isolation from basic human needs. Emma's panicked reaction to his dinner offer revealed that whatever she and Marcus were doing together required the kind of secrecy that had absolutely nothing to do with advancing anyone's career goals. What explains such freak out over a normal study break?